No. It will be.
Not that quick.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Recording in progress.
Sorry.
We've got the tech ready to go now. And computers are muted.
Yes.
Can those of you on the Zoom hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great, thank you. All right. So do we have any public comments for today? Not seeing any hands, no one around the room, so we'll move on to the minutes from February 21st.
I have a comment about 5.6. A little thing where it says, this was me giving my report after talking with Eric. Where it said town manager supported the concept of permanent funding streams. Sorry, just about the current select board's approach is to try and stay close to the previous year's budget. What I don't believe that's what I said. Try to maintain services similar to the previous year was the words that Eric had used. And I believe that's what I said.
In that, at the end of that. sentence
Right,
there.
yeah, the end of that sentence with the hyphen in it, yeah, the current select board approach is to try to maintain the previous year's services.
Which is kind of,
Kind of same thing, but
Yeah.
but the,
and it's
maintaining-
also not, doesn't promise
Yeah.
anything
Yeah.
in any way at all.
yeah. I just thought, it might meet. It might be important to somebody, like Eric, I think he would probably say, well, it's more about maintaining the services, the budget has to move if cost of healthcare for staff or whatever, but. They start with, what was last year's services, we need to provide that, and then is there anything from our wish list that we think we can add into the budget this year? That was the approach that he described to me, so.
Comfortable with that wording.
That's good. Then I have one more in 6.5. The second to last sentence noted that they faced issues with the need for town land trusts to step in when DLT and TPL are interested in the scale of smaller projects that I mean, or tell me if you disagree, but what I thought I was reporting last time was that it was an interesting idea that had come up, the idea that we might need funding sources. I guess we've run into that problem, so it's not inaccurate, but I was trying to just give it as an example of as the type of thing that could make a difference for a town like Williston. Having matching, having an entity that can hold the conservation easement.
So I guess I'm hearing two different things. One is that there's a need for a tool to conserve parcels that are not of interest to larger land trusts. And the second, I think I might have heard you say, is that there's also a need to make sure there's funding available to conserve those lands.
Yeah, the first part, I think, was the piece that I was
Okay.
sharing with Zariah last meeting. So one idea that's come up is that for a town like Williston, the limiting factor is that BLT and TPL are interested in our smaller properties, but we still may need to take action on them to meet our larger goals.
I could see in some cases it'd be potentially less expensive to do it through our own land trust as opposed to BLT or something, because they, they have charges
Overhead.
for stewardship and various other things that, depending upon whether we can supply that need, it might be less expensive.
Like if we already have like trail stewards and we're already doing.
Yeah, that's the problem, is we'd have to legally do it and have a stewardship program of our own, where, and then it starts getting into, we have to hire people to run it, and so it becomes tricky. But potentially different, at least.
So I don't know, the more we talk about it, I don't know that it needs to really be changed, but that caught my attention as maybe being more solid than I was thinking I had brought it up.
Yeah, I guess-
It was like a ponderance, like one of the things that could make a difference in Williston is this.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I guess if I was gonna offer a suggestion in that sentence, I would think about clarify who the they is, renote that they faced issues.
That Williston faced issues with the need for something like a town land trust for properties that.
You could soften it more, like the potential need or the possible need or something like that.
Yeah, by the way, Dan Boonhars, I don't know if he's ever spoken to anybody else, but he told me at Wild about Williston. That he wants to start a Williston town.
It's passionate about figuring out how to make it work, especially for rural landowners.
Right,
Like how do we, and that's one of my personal top priorities for the coming years, to figure out what do we do in the ARZB to both meet our conservation goals, but not expend funds where the open space rules probably would still do a pretty good job,
right,
but also benefit, create a system that benefits and works for people who are trying to figure out, do I stop working the land? Do I sell? Like, what do I do in this zoning district?
Richmond has a land trust
Hmm.
separate from
I wonder
conservation
if we could, like,
commission and.
Yeah, it might be interesting
So
to
we
find
like
out how
join
they
with them and
do
say,
it.
could we
How do they
become a
do it?
Williston Richmond land trust that does both towns, that kind of thing.
mhm,
Right. So I think actually Ethan Tapper is on,
Interesting.
Gary Bresser and Brad Elliott? No, that's not his name. Somebody that's been very active in the land trust.
I'm really interested in that, but I fear I'm taking us into discussion, rather than review of the minutes. So I want to talk about that sometime, Terry, and learn more.
Yeah, yeah.
Thanks for bringing it up.
Yeah.
All right,
With those suggested amendments, I would move approval as amended.
I'll second.
any comments from folks online? Okay.
Big shoes to fill, Andy.
Can you expand David for us so that we see more? It's like he's got a,
His forehead.
yeah. we got
Oh,
the-
is that right?
There we go.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. There he is.
Well, maybe not, no.
There you go.
All right, so we have a motion and second, any discussion on the motion? All favor of the motion to approve the minutes as amended, please say aye.
I
Any opposed? Thank you, Kim. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Andrew. All right, so that gets us to the next agenda item 4337 St. George Road Conservation Opportunity. What's happening with this project?
Yes, so we actually had the owner, Mr. Akey, come into our office and he was asking about his parcel. I did invite him to the meeting today. So he was gonna try to attend, but I don't see him. So-
So the link to the materials is not in the town website one, it's only
Okay.
the email one, so you might wanna add that.
Okay,
Yeah,
noted, thank you.
if everybody's looking for what was materials.
It is at the bottom of the page, I think.
There's a
Oh,
link
is it,
way up
if
on
you are on the website?
Yeah, no, see.
Uh,
Oh, there it is, yeah. Yep, it just, the link is just on the text, okay, got it.
My hope was to include Mr. Akey in this conversation. We can still take a look at it if you want to right now, or we can hold off. See if he shows.
We can. What do we have on the
Swap
schedule?
swap it with Smoker and.
Yeah, is anybody logging in for the Schmoker project or Schmoker agenda item?
Nope, and that might be relatively short.
Okay,
So
all right, well,
it's
let's
certainly-
do that then. Let's
Okay.
talk about the Schmoker project and if Mr. Akey arrives or logs in, then we can transition over to that when he arrives.
I just noticed on your little sign, the phone number is missing a number on that little trail change sign.
It's good we're talking about it today then. Let's
Oh,
do-
yeah, look at that.
Yeah. Sure what number, but something.
So I'm sort of picking this up in the middle. Simon briefed me and I actually have now walked to the section of the trail. And so Simon wrote up this this page here, and we have a drawing there that shows the proposed changes, the realignment. And we've reached out to Glenn, who's the landowner, about the work that we're proposing on the trail. That there's the kind of hedgerow here with some stones that need to be cleared. So trying to figure out timing for that. But the goal was to have this website up and also have some signage. So if anyone has any feedback, discussion, I can pull up the sign as well here.
And when has he already started the realignment or when's that gonna?
He is not.
But it's approved by the select board.
It has been, yes, yeah, so I think it's finding time for him when it
Yeah,
works.
he's, I don't know, I heard he was in like California with his bees or something.
Yes.
Which is bad. He travels all over the
Almonds
place.
or
Yeah,
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and then.
I do have a question about the second sentence, I guess. It says, in May 2024, the town will be realigning the western section of the trail. And my recollection, and this was months ago, was that the farmer was going to be doing that realignment. Is there a difference that I'm not appreciating there, or is my recollection correct?
I think you're right. It was the landowner who requested permission to realign the town realign the trail from the town.
Yeah.
But the landowner will be doing the work will be doing the realignment.
Including removing invasives and.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did quite a bit of work.
Yep.
Mhm.
so I guess that's.
Yeah,
good.
I might suggest a friendly edit then to say that the town has approved the realignment of the trail, which is expected to begin in May 2024 or something like that.
Yep,
I like it.
yep,
Yeah,
that sounds good.
I just want to make a general comment about this. It seems like this was a lot of work to go through to make something that, I don't know, I saw no reason not to. I mean, it helped agriculture. It didn't really alter what the use of the trail is at all. And I'm just kind of surprised that it took so long and so many hurdles to jump through.
Yep,
I don't know if you guys felt the same.
I do, or I did, but, I guess. Before I question too deeply, I guess I'd wanna look at the management plan for, is this part of 5 Trade Hill? I'm not sure,
Right.
but. If there's a management plan for this area, if there's anything there that dictates the
Yeah, I do-
process.
I
for
do
the
remember.
trails.
You know, other things that have happened on Smoker Trails happen almost instantly. I remember McKay's, when mountain bikers almost hit Mrs. McKay once walking up through their own land on that trail. And so that it almost instantly stopped mountain biking allowed. And I don't know, I see it as too much work for somebody to have to go through. Remember, they're allowing this
Yeah.
easement, it's already approved. And in the language, if I remember correctly, and I think we should perhaps look at it, it is a mutual agreement about where it goes. So I'm just a little surprised that it took so long. I mean, it's been, what, over a year or more since they started the idea of doing that. It
It was
seems like,
public comment, so they might have
Yeah.
to wait, but still, yeah,
yeah,
it does.
The fact that the select board has to approve these things is, I think, part of the reason it's so slow, because we need to think about it carefully,
Right.
provide comment.
maybe it
Public
depends on the
comments.
magnitude. This was a very little change. I mean, they moved it like 20 feet or something, and
We can
And actually,
imagine
they
it, like,
bore the burden of it because they had to give up part of their useful farm field to allow for it.
you can imagine if the reroute was different. And they had said, oh, it's gonna go down the hedgerow on the
Yeah,
east side there, and then
dramatically
along the road, and then the neighbors get involved with, well, wait, hold on, there's gonna be people walking through my backyard, and,
Yeah,
you know, they're not used to that, so. This one ended up being minor, but I feel like it could have been in a different
More
scenario.
streamlined.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, that's a good point, good observation. I think maybe we should. You know, as we're looking at management plans for our, trails, trail areas, conservation areas that have, trails. We can think about language in there that stipulates what stipulates the process for approving trail realignments like this one feature.
Or maybe in general, changes to uses as well as, you know,
Yeah.
I wonder if this is gonna come up, for the Krantz property. You know, they're seeking a floating easement for that trail because they wanna have the ability to move it in accordance with, you know, their solar development. I don't know if a floating easement gives that landowner more flexibility on, you know, not having to go through a 6 to 8 month town select board approval process, you know, preceded by a, you know, conservation commission process. So that's an interesting question, is, you know, maybe this trail just didn't have that floating easement and it was more specifically defined. I'm just not sure.
Sorry, go ahead, Reed.
Oh, okay, I was just gonna put out a hypothetical, I just have to think about, what if it's the other way around? What if the town wanted, like, we allowed a realignment? And then we realized that there were problems with it and we wanted to try to
Yeah.
undo it? That could be really difficult if the landowner doesn't see it the same way. So I think sometimes things are slow and difficult for a reason, so that they get done right once and then we don't have to renegotiate soon after. Just a thought.
Also, there's, I do think it was helpful for the public to be involved because they didn't know they didn't understand that this was an easement and it was the farmer's land. They just were like, yeah, I don't wanna walk out in the sun, I wanna walk in the shade. And then, when the Ishams were here, they were like, you can't tell a farmer what to do with their land, and I don't know if you remember that,
Mhm.
but we were like, that's not what we're doing. So it's good to
Mhm.
probably go through the process just for kind of educational reasons.
And transparency too.
Yeah.
Right,
We're collaborating with a farmer, not telling a farmer what to do. Saying,
right,
what do you think would work? All right, let's talk about it. That's,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right,
sorry,
Thanks.
not to bring your thought process in.
that's all right. Thanks, Gary. Any other comments on the text on this website or webpage rather?
So my understanding is it's ready for him to make the change. It's all approved, everything's a go, right?
Yep, the select board, I don't know, do you know when approximately the select board approved it?
like last month or something.
Yeah, I saw the
It was
notes.
on an agenda
Yeah.
recently. I don't know if it was last week or if it was like 3 weeks ago, but it
That
was
was further back than
last
last
week,
week.
it was like early February.
And take a look at the sign as well.
If you scroll down
Yeah,
to the bottom, there's just
look
one.
at that phone number there, missing the 7.
It
So,
helps reduce call rates though.
We didn't get any calls.
yeah, right, it's great.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
So I think, yeah, about 2 weeks before Glenn starts work, we'll try to, once we get that date, we'll try to post a few signs, maybe one at 5 Tree in the parking lot. And then
Do
two.
they
along-
anticipate it being closed, that connection during the, or will they leave, you know, first put the one in the field, divert to that and then do the work behind it, or don't you know?
I don't know. It's a good question. It's something that I can ask.
That's a good point. That may, if he's gonna close the trail for the construction period, that may be good to include on
Yeah.
it. Notice.
And it's the, that beginning section of the boardwalk near Old Creamery and Oak Hill Road, is that going to get replaced this year or not? It's being put off.
I don't know yet. I talked a little bit with Simon about the feasibility of that. Would be a expensive project, if we wanted to do it. I think there is the question there of delivering materials on the side of the road there. I think we would have to access the trail from the,
Both from the other end, the Monon end.
yeah, or through the, I believe it's the Bhutan farm that's to the south there. We might have to come across their land if we were delivering materials, so some logistical questions on that one, but,
Okay.
you know.
All right, thanks for the update there. Nothing we need to vote on for that one, right? Okay, so do we, what do we think about, Mr. Akey? Should we move on to St. George, or we can keep going with, the rest of the agenda and do St. George last?
I wanna make sure we get a chance to talk about it personally. I do wanna talk a little bit about it, even if we have to revisit it with the landowners at a later meeting.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to go ahead and,
Okay,
In case
Alright,
this
well-
helps, Julie, my graduate student is ill, and so I'm just gonna do her presentation for her.
Well,
is that the town forest census?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, let's go ahead and do the St. George Road project then, and Mr. Akey arrives and you can, be prepared to ask any questions, I guess.
So by the looks of this, that's adjacent to Boomhauer's property, right? Yeah. So that could help form a
That was-
contiguous chunk,
That was my first question.
yeah.
It's.
But that's the piece that Dan has not
Right.
given up any rights to yet.
Right, just a vast trail goes through.
Yeah.
but I know he
Yeah.
has, you know, in concept, he has wishes that it will end up that way, that it will end up
Yeah.
part of that contiguous, habitat.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So this parcel is in the ARZD,
that is correct.
and it's part of that 75%. If they did subdivide, they'd have to have 75% open space.
Yes, yeah, so I can go through a quick overview if you want.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So, yes, it's Mark and Melissa Akey. It's a 25.9 acre parcel. They do have an unnamed stream, a fair amount of slopes. And we'll get into the other delineations on their parcel. A quick note is that you reviewed the nearby parcel at 252 Old Creamery.
yellow
It's the
one.
Packard parcel here, so it's highlighted in yellow. And so you did discuss Dan Boomhauer's land at that time and trail connectivity and funding for the ERF. So looking at the land itself. The parcel is highlighted in red here. You can see that the ERF prioritization is medium. It's that kind of middle green color. And And then looking at the wildlife core habitat and corridors on the parcel, you can see that it's mostly core habitat and then wildlife corridors along the eastern side there. Scrolling down to look at the official map here. Parcels with the red star on it there. We don't have any existing trails really in that area. The Basque Trail is on Dan Boomhauer's land to the south there. And then the dashed brown lines here are desired trails. And the black shows easements.
Okay.
So
So the green parcel on the bottom right side there with the leg to it, that's which
It's
parcel?
Factory Hill.
That's Factory Hill.
Yeah.
yes, yeah, so here's the overlook.
Oh, right.
Actually,
So why is Suckerbrook Hollow Trail not, is that the brown?
That's the brown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's there.
So,
Then we have the town parcel highlighted in green there.
and
Is that-
desired connection.
Dan Boomhauser's land as well, where the easement is?
Here,
Yeah, that parcel.
yes. So it doesn't have any desired trails on it. Which is worth noting. And then Terry, your question about development, potential development, you are correct that they would have to conserve 75% of the parcel as open area. They're looking to probably, well, I guess if they're conserving it, they'd be subdividing anyway, but, basically, the one thing looking at this additionally, I don't know how much detail I went in this paragraph, but it does have a fair amount of slope, which would factor into a density calculation. And also just site feasibility for an additional house, if that was an option. Talking to Mr. Akey, I don't think that that's something he's interested in at this time, but.
So if we didn't do anything, they wouldn't be able to build in there anyway, is what I guess what Terry's suggesting.
Yeah,
It
right.
already requires a 75%.
Right.
So I think in the past, at least my recollection on those type of things is we say it's not a good use of ERF money or whatever we would use to purchase it from them if it can't be developed anyways. Although, I guess we also, on the other hand, say, well, the town bylaws could change that would allow development. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
That's the
I'm
catch.
sure you guys are.
The gamble.
Yeah.
So I guess I would just note that I don't know if I would say outright that it can't be developed. There are areas that are, under the 15% slope that we allow development in.
But at least 75% of it.
Correct.
We know that under the current bylaw.
So it'd be like 18 acres.
Which is, it's 19 point something, so it's almost the 20 they're asking for, essentially the same amount of land.
So if it were developed, I think that would look like one, maybe two houses,
Yeah.
somewhere in there.
Reed? Could we go back up to the first, the illustrations of the land? Yeah, so. I was thinking the same thing, and as I was looking at the map, at least the way we enforce the 75% rule today, the portion that would be set aside as an open space parcel would most likely be at the back of the property, and any houses would be bumped as close as possible to 2A, since that would be the point of access for driveway and stuff. And if I remember driving past this one, the slopey areas tend to be toward the east side of the property, but if you had topographical information, it would be helpful to see like where those slopes occur on the parcel. Cause that would basically all but guarantee that if the slopes align with the back part of the parcel, then that would almost guarantee that would not get developed. But looks like a little L or a little Tetris piece that appears to be
Landlocked.
landlocked, does not have road exposure, and I was wondering whether it was already an open space parcel that has been set aside in order to build, to subdivide along the road, or whether that development work took place before the bylaws had the open space requirement. 007000 is the
Yeah.
one.
Referring to this one.
It kind of looks like an open space parcel to me with, but I don't know the history.
there's a
See that
little
little leg?
Oh,
leg.
Yeah, that didn't show up.
oh, so there's a house back in there.
So right away, maybe? Oh.
There's a house.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So that's up Snowdrift Lane. there.
Snowdrift Lane.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
I
looks
see.
like there, I don't know if you all can see this, but like I can zoom in because I'm on my laptop. It doesn't
Yeah. Interesting.
It's pretty topographical. No, it's helpful though.
So you can see,
Yeah, there's a. Wow, it's like a mangled landscape. It's all.
we might be getting into too many layers here, but
Yeah,
the overlay.
The
This
piece that was, came to us.
Oh,
That's,
I can't read the
I think
number.
it might be.
29000.
That's
This one
okay.
right here.
That one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So this shows wetlands, wetland buffer and slope. So you can see, looking at the Aki parcel here, they do have that slope initially.
Mhm.
And then there's a high point here. And then it generally, I think, slopes down to the water here.
The blue is blue a river or a stream?
Yeah, it's a tributary to the Sucker Brook.
Just for like the sake of interest, I just looked up Snowdrift Lane on Google and I texted Eric what appears to be like where that house is. There's like a Google pin for that says planetarium lady, and and there's a website, and I think it's somebody that like runs a planetarium and has like a dome, and it actually
Yeah,
like
she's-
looks pretty cool.
Yeah, my wife's been in there. We buy eggs from them every now and then. And that's exactly what it is. It's just this little house with I think it's got a telescope in there or something. I forget what it is.
Wow.
But that's what it is. Yeah.
It appears she's offering eclipse experiences, so maybe something
sure.
to consider for April 8th.
Wow. There we go.
So when they came in, Andrew, to speak to the town,
Mhm.
were they preparing to do a subdivision? Is that, what are their thoughts about why they want the town to buy this piece of land? Are they?
I think they're looking to sell the part of the parcel, and they don't want to develop it. And so they were wondering about a possible deal with the town to conserve it, but also make some money off of that.
Are they aware of the 75% set aside in the ATI, whatever it is?
I don't know, we didn't
Because that might
discuss.
be interesting. If they don't know about it,
Mhm.
it's certainly in the equation of how we figure out what to do.
So, yeah, and, sorry, I almost called you Simon. Andrew,
Same spot.
in where was it? I guess in the staff notes page for this. Right, where are we? Staff notes on Science St. George, Schmoker, donut. Somehow I ended up on the evaluation criteria page for the ERF. I don't know where I got there, somewhere in today's meeting materials, but, oh, there it is, right at the bottom of it, yeah. So if we look at that, that might be just a good exercise to do for this parcel in particular, because there's a list of a dozen or so bullets or criteria that the select board approved
Mhm.
in 2012 to use to determine if a parcel is eligible for
Yeah, there's
ERF
somewhere else
funds.
in there. It was,
No, this is.
So if you go back to your staff notes for this agenda item, and scroll to the end of the staff notes.
yeah, to the
The
bottom.
link is at the bottom of that, there it is.
Yeah, I read that last night.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're referring to the.
So right
The
there, number
criteria,
4, so
yeah.
this is a nicely organized list of criteria. and I don't know that we necessarily need to go through today, but it might, for this parcel in particular, and others like this one in the future, it may be useful exercise for us to just go through it and answer the questions. Does the project maximize the goals of fund in a cost-effective manner?
Yeah.
Given the current zoning for this area, maybe not. Those are closely, how close it is the proposal here to the comprehensive plan priorities, we have to look at that in some detail. You know, and then we can go through the rest of the questions.
Kim, did you just lose the meeting room?
Yes, yeah, I did. I just was like thinking that I should just go in person. Not down the road. Can you all hear us?
They should be able to hear
Yes.
us now.
Oh,
Yep.
okay, we're good.
All
We're
right,
good.
All right,
So,
presentation computer battery died.
yeah, I just have a gut comment on this based on, looking at these requirements and general discussion. In my opinion, we should consider using ERF money for more important things that,
Mhm.
since this has a very little, at least a lower risk of development in that 75% under current bylaws.
Mhm.
So that would be my gut feeling on it.
I totally agree.
That's time.
That's, that's mine too, but I think just in the interest of doing our due diligence for the landowner, might be good to at least go through some of these questions and
Mhm.
answer
I
them.
have a question about the ask. They approached the town seeking to sell the property. And selling the property does seem like a pretty that's a very specific ask. But there are other opportunities for them, of a parcel of this size. Selling's not their only option, right? That's more of a question, I think, and I don't think I would disagree with any of the characterizations that you all have said here on the prospect of using the ERF. I think we should go through that step. But the question I guess I have is like, what would be the other options that would create a sort of financial benefit for this landowner?
That's what we definitely should go through.
So other options being like a conservation easement or developing out the parcel to the extent that the bylaws allow it to be developed.
I'm more thinking about the conservation easement.
Basically purchase of development rights.
Right, that was my thought is, instead of outright buying the parcel.
Right.
What would it cost to buy the development rights?
Or suggest they donate them.
Right. But it seems like they're looking for some cash.
Does it give them a
Yes.
tax benefit though to forego the development rights?
Yeah,
Not necessarily. I mean, it isn't
Very small.
automatic. I think we found in the past that it didn't really reduce taxes much, if any, for similar projects. Am I correct on that?
We'd have to check.
We'd have to check, but
Yeah, I think
I know
that's-
people expect it, but then when they find out it doesn't give them much, it changes their mind a little bit.
Something, Andrew, you could help us find out is the difference in the tax rate on land that had the conservation easement versus open space parcel.
Definitely,
Yeah.
Assessors
very
office might be
helpful.
able to answer that.
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering if these folks are aware of their neighbors' inquiry to us about conserving their land, and we suggested to those folks, I think, if I remember right, to maybe to make that parcel or area more interesting, or not, that's not the word, but
A better fit for the ERF.
yeah,
There's
to
something.
join together
or
as
a
a,
Vermont Land Trust.
yeah, Vermont Land Trust, but make that piece bigger to conserve with neighbors. So are there neighbors that are interested in, and there's one piece that might connect? So do they even know that that neighbor was interested? And, to look at the map, and to know that that part of their land back there isn't as developable, right, because of slopes and the unnamed stream and, you know, corridor and all those things, it wouldn't be developable at this point. So have they chatted with their neighbors?
Yeah, and that's a good observation, and I think that, we could also encourage them to chat with the neighbors who came in here, but also the other landowners in that area who are in that map on the left, and their parcels are highlighted in the light green. We already sort of know Dan Boomhauer wants to do, but,
Mhm.
those other three owners of those other three light green parcels on that map might be interested in something similar, and that could make it a much more attractive package for the town and or a land trust to consider.
Mhm.
Land trust, I would guess a land trust would be more interested if the Boomhauer parcel was on the table too, but.
Do we know where that stands? I know he was interested in
Um,
conserving it.
it sounds like he spoke to a bunch of us at the Wild Williston thing about it, and from what I remember him telling me is that he was still using the parcel as a logging operation.
Mhm.
I don't know how much longer he wants to do that.
Which is still doable under conservation
Yep.
easements too, managing is an important piece of it.
All right, Reed?
I think Laura's first.
Oh, I just
okay.
wanted to suggest that we give Andrew, a list of, these are the things you should talk to Mr. Akey about if he comes back,
Mhm.
which are all these ideas, just to make sure that he and his wife really do need to know about the 75% that needs to, that, if they,
Requirement, yeah.
yeah, that would be an open space.
What else would be on that list, that's all you've heard so far today?
That their land could potentially be more interesting if they talk to the Boomhauers and to
Packard
the,
and
yeah.
other neighbors.
and the neighbors
Mhm.
for,
Mhm.
yeah, like a Vermont land trust,
And like town purchase versus development rights,
yeah,
purchase, and
Right.
other nuance.
And the
that I
tax
understand.
consequences
Yeah, tax
potentially.
consequences.
yeah. Yeah, we should, I feel bad that I don't know. I know, I just have this vague feeling that the taxes aren't a big deal, but, maybe a little help.
Yeah.
It's more, I wanna do something good with my land, is why people donate it.
Okay, Reed?
I have, maybe a bigger picture question. When Andrew's done writing, I'm hoping we can take a look at our, primitive trails, map,
Mhm.
because I have,
Great.
Yeah,
Did
so-
go through.
I'm looking for a bigger picture than this. Can we look at like the whole
You want this
shebang? Yeah, everything from Tap Corners down
Mhm.
south. And what I have in the back of my mind is, well, when the Packard conversation happened, we talked just very briefly about the fact that we don't have a desired connection north-south on the east side of 2A. But, and the folks on the line aren't able to see my finger probably, but what I'm thinking about is the fact that we've got this hurricane lane, so we have all this development, right? Thousands and thousands of people are gonna be living here.
Yeah,
They have put multi-use rec path under the highway, so now
Mhm.
people can access south of the highway. We have Hurricane Lane with connectivity to the east. We also have a desired trail connection to here. We have existing easements down to Old Creamery.
right,
So in my mind, I would almost be interested also in a conversation with them about purchasing a trail easement across that land, because people could walk from Hurricane Lane all the way up to the overlook.
yeah, that would be
Which would be
fantastic,
a cool
actually.
hike for people in the growth center. I mean, it'd be like, what, probably 4 miles each direction or something, 3 miles each direction, but it'd be really good, cool.
So you're talking about potentially coming,
Yeah.
this parcel,
Yeah.
this one.
Well, cause Packard is this one right there.
There, yeah.
This is
There.
Oh,
Packard.
that's,
And so we already
so
have.
there's one in
easement-
between there, I guess.
There's one, this is the
Yeah.
one with the planetarium
Oh,
thing.
okay, yeah.
So with Packard, who we know is already interested, we might be able to get a trail easement across here. This is the one in question. Then we have
Yeah, and then-
Boomtower, and then we're
And
into.
Yeah,
there's a
perfect.
series of trails in here too.
Yeah.
Oh,
Already.
so-
we are,
When I look at this, I'm more interested in it from a recreation perspective.
yeah,
The ability to give a really cool elevation intensive hike connection for the growth center. So that's what stuck.
So that would that could happen regardless of how they conserve it. I
Right,
mean, if it's
whether it's
even
open space or
75%, we usually ask for easements through that don't we? Maybe I'm wrong.
When they subdivide, we have the right to ask for easements.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have to this.
Now, the question, it's a lot, and maybe this is a good time to do this, is, it'd be nice to have some potential things on the map now, cause it's much easier in 2 months or 3 months to be able to say, oh, we request an easement through there, cause we anticipate the need, you know?
Now that there's.
So how do we do that? How do we add stuff to this? Is
Well,
there
we
a
have to do a
formal
draft
procedure?
amendment to the official map showing this desired trail connection. And then the next time that the select board is reviewing revisions, that it can get bundled in with other things and get approved.
mhm,
But in my mind, it didn't make much sense to have a desired connection there before we had the multi-use path underneath the highway.
Yeah.
Now, it is safe and accessible for people from the growth center to get to Hurricane Lane.
right,
And now I see it as a really, for me, that if I lived in the growth center, I'd be like, oh man, if I could just hike up on foot to the overlook without having to drive and go park and not know if there's parking, and I would do
That's
that.
And that's
Fantastic, yeah.
another good reason to finish this connection too, cause then somebody could come across there and go this way and
They
this
could go to
way.
my pond on foot if they wanted to, they could do all that. So anyway, I get excited, but that's what I saw when this came up was, ooh, maybe it's a purchase of a trail easement. And not a purchase of development rights or a purchase of land.
mhm,
I really like this idea. I said in the chat, I love this. And I just have one question, which is, do people have to cross multiple lanes of traffic for that path under the highway?
They have to.
It's on the east side
Multiple lanes.
under the bridge. It depends on which side of the road they're on, whether or not they
If
have.
they're starting off on the east side of Task Corners, on the east side of 2A, then no. They just, I think that really the only hazardous points would be crossing over the off and on ramps for the northbound and southbound lanes of the highway.
Yeah, the Staples side of the connections on the Staples side of 2A.
It
Yeah.
is, okay, okay.
It's interesting though, but they don't have any way of stopping traffic to cross over to the new park and ride that I'm aware of. I don't remember. There isn't one of those blinking lights or anything.
I can speak. to
If
that.
not,
Okay.
oh, okay, what?
There is a signalized crossing to cross the on and off ramp. There is not.
For the on and off ramp for the.
For 89,
right,
yeah.
for 89.
South.
Yes,
Right.
yeah,
Going south.
so it is, yes, it's on the east side of 2A there. Signalized
Oh,
there,
it is.
sidewalk up to Hurricane Lane, and then there's not a signalized crossing there. I actually don't even know if there's.
Cause that would be another good thing to have.
right,
So you could park in the parking lot and do your hike or
Mhm.
whatever, so, but you
Yeah.
need a way to
You need a
cross.
blinky crosser.
Yeah.
Right.
Which-
Could we bundle this as like I don't know, like we want to make recreation more accessible and we're hoping to build this trail easement and add this
I think
blinky
it-
light
yeah.
and I don't know. I
So
love the
we-
idea of making recreation accessible to all the people living in this area. I
Without a
think
car,
Yeah,
that's a.
we need this
Yeah.
connection too, right?
Or-
That's a
Does that
desired
exist?
connection, so yeah, it doesn't exist.
We don't have that.
It's a desired easement, right, the brown is desired,
Mhm.
so we have more connections to make to get there. But, yeah, I get excited about that, and, to Kim's point, I think that, there's other groups that would be interested in this concept, like the planning commission, like the energy committee, who are thinking about bike ped infrastructure. And.
maybe even like local motion or like
Local
other
Motion.
organization that might like give grants if we could like have like a like a neat project that was like
Oh,
a complete
the
package
state-
of we're gonna do these things. Yeah, exactly. The state VORAC grants, maybe. I'm just
And the-
thinking there
the
could
state
be like a
owns the
couple
parking
things
lot.
that get bundled.
The state owns the park and ride, so if we said, hey, you've got the park and ride, which is great, but we've got all these things on the far side of the road, would you help us put in an upgrade to safety for crossing? They might be able to help with that.
And in the long run, it could even connect over here to Brownell Mountain too, and alleviate the worry of needing a parking lot there if you can park in the park and ride and.
Oh,
I know
that's
it makes
true.
it longer, but
Or take your bike to the park and ride. Is there bike parking at the park and ride?
I assume so, but I don't know. That's a good question.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
So this shows the need for have more funding for the ERF to be
So
able
I
to
was-
purchase these.
I was thinking that too, like this could be a better sales pitch to the select board
Yeah.
next year, like here is a plan. Here's a, more concrete use or approach just to setting aside ERF dollars. We have this growth center that the select board has prioritized for development and gone through all the whole zoning thing and tax corners to increase residential use there, et cetera. You've got your multi-use rec path, you've got your park and ride, we've got Five Tree Hill, we've got, Mud Pond in this area can be developed out, or not developed out, but connected through with trails, and this is what it would cost to do it.
And, 7 or 8 years ago, I'm forgetting how many years ago, the ERF was approved to purchase from Hershkowitz to add on to Mud Pond.
Yep.
And that was small, that was 30 acres, that was relatively small. But that was,
And buying easements is a lot cheaper than buying land
Yeah.
by far, because easements, I think we figured them out. You
So
get a
much
pretty
per
good
foot.
easement for $1,000 or something. yeah.
Right. And it wouldn't be a lot for the Aggies, but it might be something concrete to say, hey,
Yeah.
if we put this on the official map, because we're now seeing a potential connection, then, we wouldn't be able to offer to buy the land. And you probably are gonna need to set it aside anyway for open space, so we need to be careful about how we use the town fund. However, it does provide connectivity, and we could use funds to purchase an easement across your land.
Mhm.
And they, like you pointed out, Laura, they may be relieved to know that 75% conservation is required. If that's their goal, is to, we love this land, even if we sell it, we don't
need to
want
see
it
it
to be
split up.
split up and developed. But if that kind of guarantees that, or mostly
Mhm.
guarantees that, they may be relieved and to know that.
And be happy for an easement across it.
Yeah, yeah, and to have other people enjoy it.
Yeah.
So just add that to the list, if you do talk to them again, would be to make sure that they understand that the types of things the town could do with them include negotiating or purchasing an easement or connectivity of our permit trail system.
Mhm.
and one thing to remember is that when the piece of land is required for the 75% and to become open space, that doesn't necessarily mean that we could get a trail easement, but it doesn't necessarily say that it's open to the public. Right, is that
Right.
true?
Right.
It's
Still a private parcel.
private parcel, right, so.
Mhm.
All right, great discussion, I like where that went, so we have, Andrew, you have some bullets to share.
I'll go to the conservation first.
You can pull out of this conversation to share with the Akies. I think it might be worth, maybe not next time, but in setting aside time in an upcoming agenda to talk about this concept a bit more and maybe map out and start mapping out an approach to, figure out how to make this work and
Yeah, I think that.
even what it
that's a
might
good-
cost to
Yeah.
share that with the select board at some
And
point.
maybe invite the landowners, because they could have,
Right.
Dan especially might get
Yeah,
excited.
Dan would get excited, I think, about this.
The neighbors, yeah.
So I'll make two comments then on this. First, having last night had a planning commission meeting, we were talking about, my group is Chapin and Shale and Williston, and we were talking a bit about trail connectivity and also areas of town that might need more trails. But as we're talking about the town plan, those broader goals for trail connectivity are something that we want to be talking about and I think our goal is to include the Conservation Commission in that conversation, once we have a slightly more defined chapter, draft pulled together.
Great.
The other thing I'll just mention quickly, and we can talk more later, but on April 3rd, we'll be talking to, some representatives from Shelburne.
We meet
there.
there, Conservation Commission?
Correct. And Simon reached out to Dan Boomhauer prior to that, or just last week, and invited him as well, so.
Great.
Maybe a time to continue that conversation.
Great.
And can I-
So as
since we're on
part of
trails,
that, I suggest we set aside some time to just pencil in some of these areas, just to get our
Yeah.
thinking, for
Mm.
areas of connectivity, what's needed as the next step. Just
Yeah.
so we know, and then try to figure out how do we put this,
It's been like 2
on
years
paper.
since we looked
Yeah.
at the trails
Yeah.
map.
So, yeah, so I don't know, I know we've got the Winooski Valley Park District on our March 20th agenda. I don't know what else has to be on there, but maybe we can set aside a half hour, 45 minutes to do that exercise.
We can try,
Okay.
I will say that we do have a fair number of HDAs
Oh, do we?
coming to
Okay.
talk about.
Wow.
Some that are under our newer process that we contracted out to the town, and some from developments that I think you've already seen,
Okay.
Okay,
so.
Good to know. And then I guess one other comment I had was on adding or amending the map that you just have on the screen to add those desired trails in. I don't know if that's something, I don't know which would be easier to do an amendment at this point, or to just include that as an updated map as part of the new town plan.
I don't know which would be easier either. I do think that not plan option is something to consider, because I think that can be part of a broader discussion, goal setting in the town plan, which I think is important.
And because since we're on trails, could I just
Sure.
just a quick thing, the Catamount Outdoor Family Center is working on doing kind of a master plan on their trail system. And that kind of got going because the state told the outdoor center, you need to come to us with like a plan. You can't keep coming with like this little thing and that little thing, and to go through Act 250 and get permits. So they have had 2 meetings already open to the public, either in person or on Zoom. The next one will be March 12th at 6 to 7. So if you have any input, any, ideas, that they're talking about everything about trails, closing trails, making new trails, improving trails. There's a lot of things that they want input from the public. So, maybe a good idea to, last meeting, they've had 2 already. Third one, they'll kind of bring it all together.
Great, thanks. Free?
One final thing on this, sometimes I find like naming things helps us remember what we're talking about. So just wanted to throw out a suggestion that this could be called something like the Growth Center Overlook Connection or something like that.
oh, that's great.
So that we can remember what it is we're
I like that.
talking about when we revisit the topic.
Sounds good to me. We can use that as a, before a, temporary name anyway, until we
Yeah.
move forward a bit more. All right, thanks, everyone. Kim, what's going on with the town forest census?
Yeah, can you, well, first of all, thanks for, making time for this, Andrew. Or wait, Andy or Andrew?
I prefer Andrew.
Okay,
Okay, Andrew. Someone said Andy earlier and I was like, what?
That's okay.
Can you give me, I think there's a delay, so I'm sorry if if the speaking is a little bit weird, but can you give me ability to share screen?
Yes.
And so this is really, I'm gonna present somebody else's work. This is really a master's student that I'm co-advising her thesis, and it is part of a larger initiative that was started by Cecilia Danks who has been faculty in Rubenstein for a long time and does community forestry work, and originally wrote this proposal to do this. So that's all to say, like, I am going to, I still don't see share screen on my options. I'm going to present this, but just know that, like, I'm not the best person to present this. I'm sort of like coming into the project 18 months after its inception, and
You should have the
doing
right
some.
permissions, then.
What?
You should have the right permissions based on what we see on our side. It says you're a
Yeah,
co-host.
for some reason though, I don't see share screen. Let me try one more thing.
Hmm.
I'm seeing if
Andrew,
it's in
can you
more.
Click on share screen, does that give you other options to give it to somebody else?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
all
there you go.
participants.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I have to save that.
Now try, Cam.
Let's see. Yeah, I still don't see it on the bottom.
Maybe that bottom.
Is there a more menu for you?
Yeah, and it's not in there.
Hmm.
Very strange. Okay, I'm just gonna send it to you, Andrew.
Does that mean Andrew has to present
It means that he has to. Yes, it means he has to present it.
Share the
Page.
link or whatever.
it? Ready, here's the presentation. Yeah.
You're emailing it to me?
Yeah, I'm gonna email it to you.
Yeah, sorry, hazard. Hard to hazard. That was an interesting question about the bike parking at the park and ride. I don't know if there's bike blockers or.
I think so.
You would think because people could meet a person with a car there. to
Yeah,
do
yeah.
something.
Yeah, bike down, leave your
Yeah.
I
bike,
almost
bike locker
and
and
get
get
a covered one with,
Mhm.
Right.
with lockable.
Mm-hmm.
And solar panels.
Yeah. If not, then it's worth the town thinking about it.
Mhm.
You think the state would just automatically do that
You
in
would
any
think so.
parking ride, yeah,
Yeah.
interesting.
Okay, it's zooming through there. It's gonna take a minute because the UVM server is always slower than Gmail for some reason. Gary, have you noticed this? In the meantime, I'll just say quickly that the goal of this project is really born out of the realization that the state Forest Parks and Recreation's Urban and Community Forestry Program has been rolling out resources over the last handful of years to support community forestry projects in towns. And so you all might remember
Uh-oh.
that when we conserved Catamount, there was a requirement of the grant that we do community engagement in the writing of the management plan, right? Like the Forest Service money that was used to purchase the parcel, that was a stipulation of that grant, that community engagement process. And so at that time, Melinda actually had applied to Urban and Community Forestry for resources around recreation planning. They had rolled out this town forest recreation initiative. And we didn't end up getting looped into those 10 towns that received that money. But 10 towns received support. I can see that you have the PowerPoint up, but I don't see it. I think maybe it's not shared with me.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure which side you're on. In any case, this was like sort of part of this initiative to provide more support to towns trying to do work on town forests. And as part of that conversation, kind of this like realization that like we don't even really have like a good handle on how many town-owned forests there are in the state and what level of support each of those towns has, and if there is a paid person who's managing that or if it's volunteer run, and what their level of knowledge around the management of their town forest is. So I would say that in my estimation, we have like maybe the Cadillac scenario in Williston, right? Where we have like a bunch of town owned forested parcels. We have a really knowledgeable group of people across a range of levels of paid staff to volunteers, right? That are engaged with managing them and thinking about them. We probably have currently the most engaged county forester in the state, like maybe the Northeast. And that's very different from other towns. And so the goal of this project is really, one, to figure out like how many town-owned forests are there in the state of Vermont. And then what is their capacity to manage and make decisions? What is their governance structure like? And what do they need in terms of support? So we can like skip through maybe like, if you just kind of skip through the slides, Andrew, I'll tell you when to stop. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. Are you
Our silence is intent listening.
if you are you able to advance through? I still see the cover slide.
Oh, it's showing her the other PowerPoint window, not the presentation. Or is hers just not advancing? I don't know.
Okay, well, I'll just
Redo
like
your Shan. You should be able to select the presentation mode window now. Right.
I'll just like cut to the chase of why we wanted to come in today, which is that our goal is to send out a really short, our hope is for it to be short survey.
Is that better, Kim?
Great. Yeah, awesome. Thank you. So, okay, yeah, a couple issues. Someone brought up in a previous meeting, don't the county foresters know where the town forests are? And like, isn't there already a map with the state? And the answer to both of those questions is like kind of ish, right? Like the county foresters, some of them know about some of the forests. I thought about before this meeting, like quizzing a couple of people just to like be able to demonstrate that I think not every forest is known, right? Gary said in a previous meeting, well, there might be forests in town, but it's not like the town forest, right? So like Heinsberg might own a forest that is not Heinsberg Town Forest, but we care about all of those forests. We care about any forest that's owned by a municipality, and like Forest Parks and Rec and Urban and Community Forestry would give resources for people to do work on any of those town-owned forest parcels if only we knew about them, right? So the thing that we want is a comprehensive map of every forested parcel that is owned by a municipality in the state of Vermont, managed or unmanaged, conserved or unconserved. Does this exist and what's happening on it, and what support might the town need to manage it in a way that would maximize public benefit or maximize conservation, whatever that their goals might be. Typically the forests that are known and that receive support tend to be in the towns that already have a high capacity to do things like interact with urban and community forestry, apply for VORAC grants, right? Sort of that, like, the more capacity you have, the more support you're able to access. And at the same time, there's a move towards conserving these parcels making use of Forest Service money to create community forests. And so there's this need to make a better, more accurate, more complete map to know who all the people who are managing or involved in the management of these forested parcels, and to figure out if urban and community forestry has or in the state has pots of money, those sort of best get allocated to meet broad needs across the state. So that's really the goal here, is like take the pulse, figure out where these properties are, figure out what towns need in order to manage them better. You can advance the slide. We can maybe skip a couple because you can skip these. Yeah, okay, so let's go one more forward actually. We can maybe just hang out here for, I think we have 15 more minutes. Is that true for this conversation, Andrew?
Yep, yeah, we have
Okay.
some.
So I'm not, because we like I wasted a little bit like with the logistics at the beginning. I won't go through this whole PowerPoint.
I'll give you 20 minutes, Kim.
Well, I mean, I think like let's just maybe see if we can get the thing that Julie and Cecilia and I are hoping for out of this meeting and in what we have. Our goal is to send a survey, hopefully a short survey, to individual towns and ask them to tell us what forested parcels they have. Our goal would be to be able to pre-populate so that if someone from Williston is filling it out, we would have a list already of here's the ones we know about in your town. And then to ask about a range of concepts that you see up here, so that every 5 or 10 years the survey could be repeated and we could collect, or the state could collect, because it will probably get handed over to the state for management of this long-term information about the state of the forests and what people need. And so our question for Conservation Commission is really like, probably this is going to go to conservation commissions. And as we have been drafting the survey, I think a couple times there have been times where we're like, oh, it's getting kind of long. What topics should we cut out or should we leave them in? And there has been maybe this reoccurring refrain that is, well, the Conservation Commission is passionate. They'll take the time to fill this out. And I've been like, I'm passionate and I might not have the time to fill it out. And so what I would love to hear from you all is when a survey like this goes out, what are sort of like the guardrails that you would be like, I can't sit down and do this, or I don't have this information, recognizing that Williston is probably one of the most resourced towns in the state. And also, what is the information that like is useful for you all to know, both relative to the town, but also thinking on like a broad state level, like what do you want to see us collecting across many town forests, recognizing that this might open up the door for cross municipality collaboration or collaborative planning or collaborative governance of conservation areas. So that's one question that I'd love you all to respond to. And then I have like a couple others, like really specific questions that are like, how would you answer this question? Is it clear? And if we don't get to that, I could just email it out to a couple people to comment on. But the big question is, this is happening. How do you have feedback on how it happens, and what information would you want to be able to then use thinking about our forested parcels?
All right, thanks, Kim. So I guess I have just one clarifying question, which is just about these two columns. So I understand the perennial column, and how that would be framed in a survey, but can you explain more about how you would use the bullets in a topical column in the survey?
Yeah, so the idea here is that the perennial ones would happen every 5 years, no matter what. And that the topical ones may come in and out as relevant. So like the COVID question might go away after 5 years. I mean, I think one question is like, are you like, no, most of these should always be in? Like that could be a piece of feedback that you always think that we should be collecting statewide data about carbon and you always want to tell us about carbon.
I see, okay.
Or you could say like one of the things that I have been thinking is like, are some of these not relevant? Like, do you look at this list and think like, we're never going to manage for carbon? Yeah.
All right, so we've got Reed and then Dave.
Let David go first. Go ahead, David.
Go ahead, Dave.
Thanks. So I guess the point then is that you're trying to create survey questions that will persist over time so that you have trend lines with answers to them, and that it's not just a one-time survey. It's like you're going to be asking these surveys frequently, and I see frequency of 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, and I think we're settling on 5 because 10 is probably
10 years is way too far.
too long. Yeah.
I would even potentially say more if you actually want consistency.
Depends on how long it is, right? I mean, a longer survey, you can't ask as often, so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How
would
long
you all take a 20-minute survey about your town forest once a year? Or would you be like, didn't I just fill this out?
Yeah, that's
20 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like every year I wouldn't, but every 2 years I might entertain it.
Mhm.
5 years at a minimum, like it is longest, great. So Mike, are you done, David? Was that your?
That was my question. Yeah.
My question, Kim, or my comment, Kim, is one of the things, and maybe I'm just not like reading between the lines and help me, but one of the things that I don't really see specifically asked up here is what are the primary threats to those town forests? I know it has problems. It has user conflicts, but I'm thinking about topics like invasive species,
Development.
climatic changes, weather pattern changes, storm impacts. I'm thinking of overrun by public use. So I'm trying to think like whether there is a more specific question to track the perceived risks to our town forests. Whether they're scientifically the biggest risks or not, I think it's important to understand what people think are the biggest risks or threats, because that might inform public outreach or education. Maybe everybody's worried about, I don't know, that we're gonna, such and such species is gonna die out because of the changes in our winters or something. But maybe the science doesn't say that, and there's an opportunity that, there's just an example, like, oh, okay, everybody's worried about this, but they probably shouldn't be based on what we've already done research on. So I just wanted to point that out, that I didn't quite see that you would have a clear traceable data set on what the perceived risks to the town forests are. That was one
We
thing.
definitely don't. I would say we definitely don't have a question about that.
then the other one was-
will read you the question that we like. I have a
Mhm.
couple that where I have questions about the wording of, like I said, and I might send this out to everybody afterwards so that you can say like, we have no idea what that question meant. We have a question that is basically a drop-down menu that says, tell us about the challenges of managing your forest. And then the list includes flooding, forest health, funding, governance, invasive, lack of volunteers, multi-use conflict, neglect, overuse, parking, protecting sensitive areas, unauthorized use, access for people with varied abilities, vandalism or trash dumping, or wildfire, which like my concern is that this list is very long and that people are gonna like, and that's just like not in a lot of these questions, it's just like not great survey. Like I'm afraid people are gonna be like, I quit. I got tired reading the list.
That makes me think like a liker, like being saying, you know, how impact or how serious do you view these risks, and then allowing them to kind of rate on a scale, you know, I'm really worried about wildfire, but I'm not very worried about trash or, you know,
Mhm.
different things. But it's also
Right.
hard because there might be things that people view as risks that aren't on the list. So trying to
So
figure
what
out how
are
to get
you
it.
suggesting? Like, do you think it would work? Would you be like more or less annoyed or more or less willing to fill out a question that said, I wrote down, from your perspective, what are the biggest risks to your town forest?
Yeah, I'm just thinking that the survey responses to that, if it's free form, are gonna be a lot harder to map or to chart over time compared to a liker. Where you have all the values already there.
An option.
At 10, yeah, and you might have like 8 potential risks that are the leading risks in our region or something. And then you could have a free form field that says, are there any other risks that
Mhm.
you perceive that you were not asked about?
Yeah.
So I think that might be a good way to approach it, so that you just lower the effort once you get the results. And then my only other comment was on the economic benefits topical one. I think that on my mind, that's one that I think should be asked every time is, do you view your forests as overall an economic generator? An economic drag, like, is it net positive, net negative, kind of neutral? I think that would be a really interesting thing to map.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So good. This is a question that I was going to actually say, and we have really struggled with this because, and I'll say that I think that Julie would admit this if she were here. She took a class on ecosystem services and valuation of nature, and I think is
You guys
now.
wait 20 minutes and our meeting will be over.
Sorry,
Yeah,
yeah,
we have distractions.
got Public Works is doing something, jackhammering or drilling or something in the background here.
Oh.
We'll mute ourselves, you keep talking.
I was gonna say, we've taken the word economic out of the question. And I'm wondering, and instead use the word value to allow people to talk about value in a way that's not economic, but that doesn't allow for what Reed just suggested, which is that some people might view town forest as an economic drag. And so I'm just wondering, would you all do you all like, it sounds like the answer is yes, but like you want the word economic in there and you want it more as like more than benefit. Is that accurate?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, Gary.
I think benefits is good. You know, I don't know if you need to list a couple, like there's economic, there's recreational,
Mhm.
accessibility, like you put here.
Yeah.
That are all potentially really valuable benefits
And ecosystem, benefits.
yeah, sustainability, you know.
Yep.
Habitat, all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff too.
Ecosystem services.
Right.
That's what I was trying to say, but yes. So, yeah, came to that point, I guess it'd be either keep it general or make it,
Have a pull down.
have a
thing or
pull down
something,
and check all that apply kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, Laura's had her hand up for a while.
Yeah, I just had you probably said it, but, do you ask about, a question about what kind of forest it is, whether it's mixed hardwood or, I mean, or do you just know that?
No.
It is.
Great.
That's a
We
great-
don't have that.
Yeah.
And you feel that like, I mean, talk about what made you ask that.
Well, I'm thinking a hemlock forest, the hemlocks are all probably going to die in the next so many years. And
Mhm.
so it would just be good to know what kind of forest it is.
And in general, what kind of potential there is for using the forest.
Right.
'Cause if it's
Yeah.
a 10 or 15-year-old field that's
Poplar.
just gone into woody plant,
Right.
that's totally
All
different
pine
than
trees,
100-year-old mature trees.
right, yeah, the age,
Age and maybe, yeah, general species composition.
yeah, natural
hardwoods.
communities, yeah.
Do Did you catch all that, Kim?
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not sure that every town will know the answer to that. So I'm like thinking through the,
Unsure is an
Um,
okay answer too, like we haven't assessed it.
Right,
Yeah.
that gives you some
Yeah.
information.
And you need to have some confidence in the town's ability to know that they have
Even have one.
that have a forest, but have, you know, that they have a forest that is mostly hemlocks. You know, that they're not confusing it with white pines or something.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
All right, we've got
Yeah,
Gary
I think
and
that
David and
might
then Terry.
I think it might be an okay question to ask, and we would just know that it might not be right.
The confidence level might be
Yeah,
lower.
yeah.
Yeah.
I had a general question that I would ask immediately if I saw such a survey. And that is, and I think you touched on it in the beginning, is to really clearly define what you mean by a forest and who the manager is. Does it have to be town owned? Can it be town managed like, you know, some of the forests we have?
Yep.
So I think that's gotta be really important. Could it be these 75% restrictions we put on conservation land? Is that part of it? So in our town, I'd have a huge amount of questions of what do you mean by a forest?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, because Kim, I think, and maybe it's just a function of you being a surrogate presenter, but I think I heard you say forest and town forest and forested parcels a couple of different times. So that would just be something I think to
Right.
make sure
Yeah,
it's
so
clear at the beginning.
This has
Like who
been
has to own them, who has to manage them type thing.
right. This has been an ongoing conversation, and I would love feedback on this. So we've had a couple like sticky points. Gary just basically settled on them of like, okay, well, there are parcels in town that Williston owns but doesn't manage, right? Like Jacob's parcel. Do we call that a town forest? There are parcels in town that are forested that we own and there's nothing happening on them, like the old Pine Ridge property. Do we call that a town forest? There are parcels that are managed by school districts. Harwood Union High School owns a forest. That's technically land owned by a school district. Are we counting that as like municipally owned and managed? And so we have struggled a little bit, similar to, this is why I brought it up in that 30 by 30 conversation, because it's sort of this parallel of like, what is conserved land? Like what meets that definition? So for you all, if I think this group is a nice group to ask this question to, because Williston has so many different
Or you
different
can get confused
forests.
easily.
Yeah. Like if I wanted you to answer this 6 times about all 6 forests in town that are, you know, like owned by the town, one, would you do that? Would you fill it out 6 separate times? And then 2, like, would you even think about all of that? Would you be like, wait, what are the 6? Like what definition do you think makes sense? Because I think the other direction has been, we talked about it last time. For a lot of towns, there is the town forest. But if we just go in that direction, we miss a lot of forests.
I think, my opinion is, I think if you're gonna use the term town forest, I immediately think of land that is set aside as town forest, like Richmond. Is it Richmond? Richmond
Andrews
Town
Community-
Forest,
Yeah.
as opposed to forested parcels of land that
Talcott
either,
Woods is our town forest.
what's that?
Talcott Woods is Williston's town forest, right?
Is it?
Yeah.
I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Oh, you don't, yeah, it's a 90-acre piece that is designated as our town forest.
Interesting.
All right.
Yeah.
So I thought you guys knew
There's a
that.
thing I learned today.
Yeah.
Turns out we have a town forest, yeah.
Anyway, like, just, I guess, my suggestion, just think carefully about your terms and maybe provide definitions of them at the top of the survey.
Right. And another one to add to that is the word management, because that means it's different now that current use allows leave it be as a management scheme. So that would be important to define what management means to you guys.
Yes. All right, David and then Terry.
Maybe, he's fine. Trying to.
There we go. Yeah, I think, yeah, mute loop. Interesting to hear about so University of Vermont Talcott Forest, is that what you're talking about,
Yes.
Gary? Yeah.
It's a town
Um,
forest managed by UVM.
Oh, wow, okay.
But
Thanks.
I should maybe have backed up and said there is a rich history of town forests in New England and in the state of Vermont, and it is a legacy of colonialism. It is a practice that settlers brought to New England, and originally these forests were used to grow trees to be the masts of British naval ships. Later, they were used to provide firewood to families that were struggling, and also they were places where families that were struggling could have a job cutting wood and working essentially as loggers. So they were like an early form of social security that was imported from Britain, and that is why you see them in New England and not across the rest of the country. So, and Vermont is one of the few states that actually has an act in its constitution that gives towns the rights to own forests for these purposes. There are something like 50 school districts in the state that own forests and procure wood for chip and biomass heating. So like town forests are they're pretty integrated into the fabric of Vermont, and they've played a lot of different roles throughout history in the state. And so there are some towns that have this like officially designated, this is your town forest and you can use it for these purposes. Talcott is one of those.
I feel like I was just in your class, Kim. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry.
No.
Oh, in a good way, in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way, because I absolutely had no idea about that. I mean, I think some of those, depending on, who the survey gets sent to, it's all going to be about based on the level of knowledge. Do you want the survey to be restricted to just like those designated parcels as you were just describing it, Kim, or do you want it to be like a broader discussion of like all of our town-owned parcels that have woods on them? Because I think that would be I guess the survey seems very broad right now, and therefore would be hard to answer unless you had some sort of preambles and clear delineations of, we only want you to answer these questions in relation to that one parcel that's your designated town forest as you just described it.
Yeah, so I think we don't want just the one parcel as designated. We don't want any parcel that has forests on it. We want like big forested chunks, right? Like things that we would call forests that are owned by the town. So maybe there's more to be done around like defining what that is for people. And then my follow-up question is like, is that too much, right? Like you all would have to literally fill the survey out like 6 times.
Yeah, I do think survey design is a critical element of this, especially if you want it to be replicated every few years, because the number one rule, I mean, we do surveys that all the time. We do surveys all the time, and it's really frustrating because you want to change the questions, but you can't, because the whole point of the replicable survey is that you need a consistent question year over year to see how those responses change over time. So yeah, I think you're going about it the right way, which is you should ask these commissions what the right questions are. But I also think, we use UVM for some of our survey design work as well. So I don't know who those might be, but I know that there's a lot of statistical analysis teams at UVM who help do survey design.
Yeah, I feel okay about, I do a lot of surveys. So I feel okay about like that end of it. I think the thing that we're trying to do something that is broad and shallow, right? And doesn't unfortunately get drilled down into too much stuff. And so choosing like, okay, if I can only ask 20 questions, which are the most salient to,
I get it. That's why you're hovering on these topics, right? That makes sense.
Yeah.
All right, so we
So-
have, Terry has a question, and then we should probably move on, Kim, so if there's anything else that you want to get from the commission today, think about that.
Yeah, I have one thing that I really want to ask you all.
Okay, go ahead,
So
Terry.
I'll do it after Terry's question.
Okay, so I was just, you were, in the beginning, you said you were gonna send this out to conservation commissions. And I was just so surprised, I think it was last year, I saw the list of towns that actually had conservation commissions, and I was aghast.
Yeah, it's
There
not
were
that
so many
many.
towns that
That's a
don't.
large number or a few number?
A few.
You.
Yeah, few, so, and I do some volunteer work up in North Hero, and they don't have a conservation commission, they have a Parks and Rec. And if you sent this survey to the town clerk, say, you know, she probably would say, oh, this should go to the Parks and Rec, you know, but, you know, she might get busy and put it in a pile and, you know, and forget about it. So really, each town is so different, you know, you can look at all the towns on a map that have a conservation commission, but then every town is just so different. I mean, there's, you know, who would it be, you know, addressed to, basically? So, and you just could only hope that the town clerk would know. You know?
Right. So I think in many cases it will go to a town clerk. I think there are many cases where the town clerk is the only person, right? Like I think there are
Right.
towns that have less governance even that like don't have a Parks and Rec, right? Like it's just one volunteer person. And so yeah, I think that like harkens back to what I said at the beginning, which is that like when we have these meetings, periodically someone will be like, oh, well, they're gonna fill it out because they're passionate conservation commission members. And I think that's true in some towns and not true in others. So yeah, I'm curious to hear like maybe if you think about, did you just say South Hero or North Hero? I forget already.
North Hero.
If you think about North Hero, like how many minutes would a survey have to take? Like at what point is somebody like, I quit, that's it? Can you like imagine that in that town? And or even like for all of us, like I really care about forests, obviously, but I'm also a very busy person and I can totally see myself starting and then abandoning it.
Yeah.
And so do you all have like a time limit or a question limit that you think people would stop filling it out? Like if it's not completable, then it's useless, right?
That town survey that we all took for the 2050, that was pushing the limit. Like what Simon had set up for us was reasonable to do, but we were doing that like every other week. But yeah, that's a great question, Kim. I think 10 to 15 minutes.
And Kim, if there's any way, because this is a repetitive survey, if there's any way to show the respondent what the town's responses were the previous time, that could potentially really help them to not overthink it. So they're basically just saying, has anything changed? Like those were our
Right.
responses 2 years ago. All right, well, I could really quickly fill in the ones, no, that hasn't changed, that hasn't changed. Oh, actually, yeah, we're a little bit more worried about that. Or, oh, now we have a new whatever. The size has changed, we've added acreage or something, so.
Yeah, I guess that depends.
Sorry.
That's a good point. But that depends on how you want the successive surveys to be administered, or the feedback for those. Do you want them to be biased by
Yeah.
the user
Yeah.
knowing what the previous answers were, or do you want like a fresh start?
Mhm.
And like, there's benefits either way, I guess, depending on how you want the feedback to be informed. All right, we're running out of time here, Ken. What was the last thing that you wanted to hear from us?
Okay. If I were to ask you all, have you harvested on your, let's just think about Catamount for a second. If I were to ask you all, if we harvested on Catamount and if timber came off of it and how was that money managed? Terry's not allowed to answer this question. Would everybody know how to answer that?
I would know how to get the answer, Kim, but I wouldn't know the answer off the top of my head.
Same
Yeah.
here.
And would
Yes, for
a
Williston.
question like that, like, would that make you abandon the survey? Do you
Abandon
think,
it?
like,
If
would
it
you
was
be like,
required, it might. if it was optional, I don't think it would. I know optional has its own pitfalls, but I feel like if I had the ability to be like, shoot, I can't get that answer right now, but I can finish the rest of the survey. I don't know if that's better or worse for
Yeah.
your needs.
Or if you had an option, if it's multiple choice and you had an option that says, I don't know how these
Right.
funds would be managed, then that gives the user. Sounds terrible, but I'm tired, an easy out, and also gives you the information that the Conservation Commission members or whoever's responding. Just
Doesn't know.
don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's important to know, that they don't know, yeah.
Yep.
You can
Yeah,
always follow up if it's just like, oh, there were 10 responses that said, I don't know, you could follow up with them after and say, you know, I wanna clarify, cause you mentioned you don't know.
That's true, you can always call people, yeah.
So,
do
Kim, are
do
we
any
gonna
of you,
reveal?
just like out of curiosity, does anybody know how like the harvest, the recent harvest at Cadmount, does anybody know how that financially shook out?
I feel, you mean how much money they got from the sale?
Or like what they did with it?
Oh, I feel like we should know, because I'm pretty sure that either you or Terry told us at least once, but I don't remember.
I seem
Yeah,
to
okay.
remember it's being used for invasives. And it was $19,000. That's all I remember though.
Laura with the win for the day.
Yeah,
It's right.
It's right, yeah.
That seems like a low.
Oh, Terry was nodding, I thought you were
Yeah.
saying.
No, I just say that, you know, that's part of it.
The stewardship fund,
yeah,
which can be used for
Yeah.
invasives.
Okay.
And, but it could be used for trail improvements.
And trail
it could be
improvements,
used
yeah.
for-
Uh-huh.
Oh, right.
Designated just for Catamount though?
Yes,
They're the only
Yeah.
user of it? Okay,
right, yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't go into the general fund.
right, which is good, because I think
Yeah.
in some cases it would, in many towns, yeah.
We don't need to go into sidewalks,
Yeah,
we don't need to buy new snowboard. All right.
okay,
we're building a new.
super
parking lot.
helpful, thank you, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Ken.
Ken.
Who said that?
I guess we don't have to worry about it right now.
Well, that's a can of worms, isn't it? Yeah,
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you, that'll be very interesting when the survey is
yeah.
done.
Yeah.
We'll look forward to you taking it for us.
So you're the expert.
I don't know if that will be allowed.
You know too much.
But you're passionate and that,
And dedicated,
That's true.
you don't give up on service.
But I do all the time, I'm like, I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
And I'm concerned that everyone else is gonna do that too with us.
All right, we have a few minutes left for other business. We have a Wild About Williston webpage
Mhm.
that's on the town website. Is this, I know I've seen something like this. Is this new on the town website?
It's a revision of what was out there. Sorry, Andrew.
No, you can, go ahead.
It's a revision of what was out there. So Simon had taken it down after the event because we didn't have a whole lot of like post-event materials, so it was kind of a pre-event page. And then I was like, oh, but I really want it up in some format, so he was like, okay, let me see if I can just like really do a quick fix to make it more, have more longevity as a page. So he made some updates to it. Fortunately,
Can
I'm
we
sorry.
see it?
Oh. Anyway, it has a couple photos from the event at the bottom so that people can see what it looked like and kind of the status of the
I have mine.
it's okay. It has some revisions to talk about
Oh, this look here.
what happened and
Yeah, I saw it, yeah.
yeah,
I-
so
okay.
I, from my perspective, which is probably what I imagine most of you are wondering right now, is like, does Reed feel like it's good enough? Since I was working with Simon on it, I think it's good enough for now, but I still maintain that there's a lot more to be done to it. And it does not capture the non-Simon content from the presentation, although it does have a beautiful picture of Laura doing the natural history overview. Seriously, that's like my favorite photo from the event. I still maintain that there needs to be more done on this. I don't have time to do it, so I would love a student who wants to work on public outreach around this topic to be able to say, here's all the materials and here's the script that I use for all my pieces and Laura's notes, and let's just dump it all on you. Can you take this and make it into something that's engaging Maybe the presentation can be clicked through with notes about what was said at the different slides or different things, so. I would love to see it built out, but for now, I think this is really good, and the fact that it says what's happening next is the critical piece.
Mhm.
Yeah, I liked it.
Sounds good. I think that, if this were to just be a one-off thing, which we hope it's not, I would say that maybe it's not that important to memorialize everything into that level of detail, but given that this is like, our vision here is that this is like a jumping off point for a larger land conservation effort, in town, that sounds good and appropriate to me. There's a bit of a lift there.
I could
but
see a 2025 update to it, because by then we'll have the new town plan adopted, we can talk about what has changed in the new town plan relative to this work. We could review some of the same content, some of the background stuff that's useful for the public to hear every time with it, but I could see a revised version of it offered next year, after the town plan is accepted.
Not this year. But
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thoughts on how you would recruit students to do that?
Ask, tell Ken.
Craig.
Tell
Yeah,
Kevin to
yeah.
get some-
No, Kim's shaking her head like it's not my students.
I know, I'm just,
Well, I'm not teaching right now, and so I just like don't have my finger on who the great
Well-
people are yet.
So the story, what are they called? Story maps that were done a couple of years ago. I could see a story map instead of a static page. It's a story map that you can click through and watch a video or open additional links. I don't know, see slides along with content, something that people can kind of experience on their own time. That's what I'm imagining. So I don't know, was that NR 206 or who? No, it was a different.
Oh, they changed all the numbers, and I don't.
yeah,
So whatever program
Eric
that
probably
was.
has learned them faster than I have.
Yeah,
Now 206 is called like, I don't
yeah,
know,
they're
400
like
and
6-digit
something.
numbers now.
Six digits.
Yeah,
Really, jeez.
I don't remember. Fortunately, I'm
so-
retired enough so I don't have to worry about that.
So Kim,
I said, I'm
Yeah.
out.
as you hear about the different courses being offered, if you hear of one that seems like public outreach, materials, conservation in general, public engagement, if those topics come up around any of the courses you see, maybe if you could
Yeah.
just tell them, hey, you should talk to the Williston Conservation Commission.
Now, I'm thinking also of high school kids. Do they have final senior year projects type things?
They do,
at
and
CVU, and that would be a good way, cause it's a longer time period.
That's
It'd be
true.
like a whole year they'd work on it
And
and.
CVU has an environmental club, so
Yeah.
maybe we could approach them and say, within the environmental club, are there any students looking for projects?
I mean, it probably would involve some of your time too, to help guide them, but
It'd be worth it.
yeah, it might be more likely to happen. Cause they have a specific thing they have to get done and they're graded on and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, then there's the initial of people knowing to look for it.
Yeah.
I don't know how,
I will take the action item to reach out to the environmental club at CVU and just see if they're interested in doing projects with our Conservation Commission in general, because there could be other things
Mhm.
throughout the year that we wanna toss their way if they're interested.
Yeah,
I can do that.
and Eric, I just have to leave right at 9.
I should probably head out soon myself. Any other updates or announcements?
We just had upcoming meetings on the agenda, we kind of talked about that. We'll have a update from Winooski Valley Park District at our next meeting on March 20th. Goal was to have a trail map to look at for that meeting, and I think we'd also talk
Oh,
about
great.
outreach. I had a good meeting with them last week.
Yep.
And some HDAs to talk about. A couple of them we have the 699 Nob Hill Road. So that will be our first, one with we
New
actually will have
system.
the new system and the, biologist, the person who did the assessment will actually hopefully be here.
Oh,
They'll
really?
so we have a conversation.
It's the system where they're approached by the town, recruited by the town.
Correct.
Right.
That is the goal. We also have 2 other HDAs, and I'm deciding whether they'll fit better in March 20th or April 3rd.
Okay.
But those are 98 Snowdrift, which I think.
Is that the same road we were just talking about?
Yes, yeah, so there's a subdivision along there, and I think you looked at it, the pre-application. Maybe
That might be
That's
that
on
one
Old
we're just
Creamery
back
there,
with.
one of them,
Yeah.
yeah.
And
It's one of the
then,
ones where they wanted to put it, and we asked, can you put it not so
Right.
far into the wooded area to reduce impact? I remember that one.
and then also, Ricky Vista, 10 Ricky Vista, which is the Boardman property, off of 2A.
Okay.
Ricky Vista is a little road off of Walker Hill Road, it's private.
It's interesting.
If you know the corner of Walker Hill and, is it Walker Hill and 2A?
Mhm.
There's that large farm there.
Yeah.
They wanted to put a house way in the back.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I remember
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
so those might look a little different because they basically submitted a memo, of that report, for the DRB, and I think that as we figure out what the process looks like for this more involved, process, it'll get better.
Well, yeah, there's a little bit of a learning curve to it, but
Yes, yeah.
it'll be good in the long run. Okay. Sounds good. Did you have anything else?
Yeah, I just wanted to throw out, and I don't know if we really have any idea of how we can be involved, but I'm a little worried about this whole thing going on with the Ishams selling their land and, you know, given the fact that we have development rights and then what, 100 and something acres in there and, you know, and maybe it's not I shouldn't be worried about it because it's just changing hands to another person.
I would assume there's something in the deed that says that the development rights carry over with.
Yeah, I would assume so as well. But I just wanted to throw that out that we could keep in the back of our mind when this process is going on.
And apparently it's staying within the family, it's Helen's son.
Is that
it's-
right?
Yeah,
Because
it's
the-
Helen's son, it's different last name.
Oh, okay, but it's a family
Family
member
member,
related
Dana,
somehow.
yeah.
Good. Well, that's good. I mean, I think there was that I was shocked when I saw that on TV a couple of weeks ago. I said, holy shit.
Yeah.
And they've since followed them on Facebook, so they just were saying, this is what's happening.
Good.
We're not, they're, Ginger and Mike. It's Mike,
Dave.
Dave are
Dave.
staying, living there,
Yeah.
and Helen and David, no, Michael, Mike are staying
Oh,
there.
they are.
And then
In the
Dana
big house?
in the big house.
Yeah, yeah,
And they'll stay till they, are done.
yeah.
And so then Dana is going to be taking over.
Managing
the-
property.
So will there be a new house built for Dana or don't?
They didn't say,
Yeah.
but they said the farm is still gonna run
Yeah,
and,
so it may have very little impact on our.
but it's good to. keep
But it's
on
good
doing
for us to be aware and we want to start conversation with new owners, just so we're all on the same page and stuff.
Hey, Kim, how cool would it be if we offered, that, people who are unemployed or unhoused and struggling to do work on invasives in town and be compensated? Train them to identify invasives and go into our town forests and, remove them.
Very much in the keeping with the original use of
How
town
cool would that
forests.
be?
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that's pretty neat.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Good week.
Do you have, so you have connections in North Hero as well? You guys have a
we
place
have
up
a-
there?
Yep,
Yeah.
we have.
Oh, so do we. I'm just curious. Yeah, we're on Butler Island.